Yeah, it's well past time that the stuff should be
I
legal
would think
across
so,
the
yeah.
board. Definitely.
Well,
Um,
I mean, why are drugs illegal in the first place? It makes no sense.
well, here in the U.S., a lot of the stuff that the DEA they admit was not about the drugs, but it was about the blacks.
Oh,
There's all kinds of political reasons in different places. Some of it's people being puritanical. Some of it's people not liking certain groups.
And even back in the beginning of the 20th century, the Narcotics Act of 1914, et cetera, a lot of that was fear not of the narcotics themselves, but the blacks who were using them. It's always about the blacks in this country. You notice that?
Yeah. It's not
what's
so much
that
about
about
the
anyway?
blacks around here. It's about the well, some of it's about the gypsies and the various different groups that title can apply to, because it's actually in Europe it's a very broad term. But
Well, yeah,
any group of people that aren't really dependent on living in one fixed location are generally looked upon with suspicion.
well, you know, I mean,
There's a whole thing about that. Sorry, go on.
it's funny because, like, not by design. I was raised in Vermont, where there's just almost no black people, or at least there were when I was in school. So it's not like I was avoiding black people, but I just never had very many black friends or even acquaintances.
Yeah,
But
very
I
few
never
around
knew
here.
any that made me feel threatened in any way. So I
okay.
don't know. And there have been times I've been worried, like I look at a lot of what we associate with black culture these days, and I don't like a lot of it, like rap and stuff. And part of me is like, what am I, fucking racist? I don't want to be. But then I look back at some of the older stuff, like say Chuck Berry, and I'm like, no, I just don't like rap.
There you go. Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I can't stand the what did they call it now? Urban. Yeah, it's especially when it gets as bad. Now I'm not worried about monetization, but when it when it gets to ho n-word kill and no thank you, I'm not up for that.
The thing is, in over here there is racial tension, but it's not quite the same as in America. It's well, a lot of people really dislike Polish people in England because there's the whole cheap labor coming over taking all the jobs thing. Every Polish person I've met and interacted with has been lovely. They've been really great people, and I've got on better with them than I have with a lot of natives.
Now the thing with the Polacks, are they afraid of the Polish people taking jobs the same way that the U.S. Bigots are afraid of the Mexicans taking jobs, where the Mexicans are actually taking jobs that no U.S. citizen wants? So there's no fear of anybody taking any jobs anyway.
There's definitely some of that, but as well as that, you do find a lot of Polish people doing retail jobs.
Okay. Yeah, here in the U.S., just try to get somebody born and raised in the suburbs of Pittsburgh, for example, to pick tomatoes for a living. It's not going to happen.
Or be like cleanup staff down on your hands and knees with a sponge in the public toilets.
Right. Now, that job, that sort of job, at least in this neighborhood, happens to be taken mostly by either Southeast Asian immigrants or Hispanic immigrants.
Mm-hmm.
No Yinzer would ever want any of that shit.
Mm-hmm.
And I speak in a derogatory manner of the people around here because I don't like a lot of them.
I don't know. I'm trying to think, are there any actual racial or ethnic groups besides French Canadians that I don't like at all because that's what they are. And I'm realizing, no, it's always culture. It's always culture.
Always, yes.
There's no specific group that I dislike because of, well, let me put it this way. There's no group that I dislike because of their innate characteristics, their physical, racial, or background like that. There's groups I dislike culturally because of how, well, generally more religiously defined than culturally, to be fair. But I don't dislike the followers of it. I dislike the how the thing itself influences those people. But generally, I just don't like people that much. That's the thing.
There's
I'd rather
that.
not
Yes,
be
there is.
around people. I'd rather be by myself most of the time.
I mean, here in the working class areas of Pittsburgh, there's a disdain, for example, for education, for being educated, and that comes from the I'll call it the Milwaukee demographic, if you will, the Eastern European immigrants who came to work in the steel mills and actively disliked obtaining an education beyond the 8th grade. And it's, I don't need any of that. My dad will get me a job at the mill. Well, actually, I don't need no 8th grade. My dad will get me a job at the mill. So I can't do the Pittsburgh accent right. God, it grates on my nerves.
Well, whenever people talk about like they're making fun of someone for being a nerd or something, and they're making fun of someone because they're smart, and I'm like, that's kind of, I mean, it makes sense in a way because you're stupid, and naturally you're not going to like the smart people.
I don't like you.
It's like, how can you make fun of somebody? Like, you have a high IQ. You have all this book learning. You know things. You're smart. And I'm like, dude, what the fuck? How can you make fun of me for that?
They're like, you're smart. That's dumb.
And that's what drives me nuts around here. I mean, okay, I'll get into that subject in the dating scene. If I could get around from place to place, or if I liked bars at all, I still couldn't get along with the people around here because, please excuse me, so many come off like they have an IQ slightly below room temperature and don't like the fact that, pat myself on the back, I'm where I am. You open the mouth and the sesquipedalian vocabulary comes out and they run immediately. It's like, what the hell is she?
Although there are some folks out there who talk like their grandmother gave them a thesaurus for Christmas, like they're deliberately choosing the 50-cent word.
Right.
I
have a tendency to do that occasionally. I try not to.
Yeah, that's a little ostentatious. Not a good thing.
I do have a bit of a tendency to do that myself from time to time. I generally try not to, but sometimes my brain just goes, here's a fun word, say that, and it's like four or 5 or 6 syllables long.
Well, I mean, and don't get me wrong, I love to play with language, but there's bounds of reason, Yeah.
Well, the problem is then I'll be there in conversation and I'll say whatever word it is that's come to mind that's a bit, a bit of a verbose kind of way of speaking, and I sit there and I say the sentence, and then I sit there afterwards going, I sound like an absolute dickhead, don't I?
Yeah, there's just a way of speaking and a way of thinking. I find it very difficult to describe. That's basically go Steelers. And that.
I agree with Mark Caesar in the chat. He says, I don't like the group called wankers.
Okay.
There we
that
go.
would be in Australian and British slang. That would be a general insult for someone who's being a bit of a dickhead.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I thought there must have been more to it than that, because doesn't everyone know that?
Yep, but it's just the way you put it.
Okay.
Yeah, that has the same. Does that have the same sort of connotation as tosser?
Pretty much.
Okay, I thought so. Yeah. Okay.
Stop making
Yeah,
my jokes
okay.
fall flat.
There are actually, I kind of wish you'd asked about this during the main show, but there's a lot of British slang that I don't get. But then again, there's a lot of United States slang that I don't get either, where it's like, why does that mean that?